back, and round out our essential policy, I think policy 1805, and this is actually related to some earlier conversation around open government training. And you talked about adding some language as far as the board goes, about Robert's Rules of Order and other onboarding, so there's an opportunity to do this. Before we move forward, we didn't talk a lot about the process of how this has worked for you all. We will close with that as we think about what to do next. I want to highlight something that Michelle did that really helped me when I was going through and trying to compile comments and things. When she did a look and didn't provide any changes, she just made a note, reviewed, no proposed changes. And that just helped me quickly skim through and see, okay, well, I don't need to pull this one, or I don't need to copy anything over. And so it's not necessarily a request, it was just really nice to see that, to make me, it was allowed me to ensure that I didn't miss anything. So,
and I did that on a few.
No, you didn't, no, right. No,
I didn't realize that I missed a bunch, but that would be helpful.
But it was just helpful for me to know, so I wasn't, either skimming too quickly, and I am one whose mind works best in the morning, so later in the evening, it's quite possible that could happen. But thank you for that. And so 1805, other than the note about Robert's Rules of Order, are there other conversation ideas?
Oh, I like that idea. Because that's, again, I think another policy says we follow Robert's rules, so I think it fits here.
Yeah, the reason I pulled it was that it said we need to do that every 4 years, and I didn't know that we have to do those trainings every 4 years, so I didn't do that 4 years ago.
But you did, actually, I watched a work session where you had.
Well, I did it when I first came on board, we had to print out the certificate and all that.
But I saw a session like a year and a half ago where you did.
Where,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it included the Public Records Act. You guys, I watched,
Oh,
I was
okay.
there at the work
What
session.
I'm thinking of I don't know which training it is. There is a training that we are supposed to go through with the state where you actually have to get a certificate. And it's a full-blown training. It's not a No, it's a statewide for all elected officials to go through that. It's an open public.
It's like the Public Records Act training on the Attorney General's website.
Yeah.
It's a website.
They don't offer that, but they offer that at the lawsuit conference.
They may.
Because that's
They may.
No, they do.
Yes, they do.
We do.
Yeah,
But
but
you're supposed to go get a certificate. It's a full-blown.
I got it. No, I didn't. I had to sign in on that.
Yeah,
No, I'm not
Sign in.
doing that. I'm talking about
Oh,
me.
oh, just
After 4 years, I will do that.
Yeah.
My one wondering related to including Robert's Rules of Order in this is that this is particularly about open government trainings, and does it fall outside of that header, and is this the right place to put it? I mean, it does talk about required trainings, right? But
It should be 1,400.
It could go to 1822, which is a discretionary piece, talks about continuous education and development for board members. And there could be some space there to talk about, since this is a desire of more of Kent School District's board and operations than it is about law and requirements, it could go there, if that addresses that concern.
it's not a huge concern for me. I was just thinking, conceptually about where this should live, right? And if this should be the open government training section.
Yeah, and then should now have questions? No. And then when we look at this in the idea for 6 years, I mean, there could be, during the 6-year time frame, there could be a new law that comes up, and then maybe adding language that says in any other, then we wouldn't have to, in any other required government training. And then we won't have to change a whole policy until it's time to change a whole policy. Because then it would encompass that, so we could be more efficient in our work.
And I think we're supposed to keep those certificates in some place. So I don't know if it's.
So what I'm hearing instead is more generic language around just as required or updated per the law, and then possibly moving the Robert's Rules of Order piece into the board development, more specifically there. Okay, so yay, now you can celebrate, we have finished the essential policy. And we're moving on. We are moving on to, sorry, 1000 series legal status and operations. There was not a lot of conversation, or some, but wasn't a whole lot of
Yeah, at first I wasn't really clear. The first official meeting was right up. Yeah, there was a
Oh.
question about
So I,
the using these.
So there's a designation in the law around whether a district's a first-class district or second-class district, which is an interesting description and name for it. But it speaks to the size of the district is what it means. And so I guess because policy is related to law, they use the formal language of a district of first class or second class must do such and such and such. So that's why it's that.
Yeah, I caught that later.
But yeah, no, and you're correct, the world would not know that. I didn't know it until I investigated it and where that line delineates, but that is, yes. It has nothing to do with the quality, so second class districts are not of lower quality, they're smaller in size.
That terminology
Yeah, it's a legal
was
term.
demeaning.
Yeah, it's a legal term, and there's certain requirements that we have to meet as a first-class district as opposed to other classes of districts. So it is important that we distinguish that we are a first-class district.
And then the first official meeting, there was a question about that. I think it had to do with officers. Officer safety. There was an issue of how both the regular board meetings versus our work sessions. Came up more about.
So what defines a first official meeting?
Yeah, it's the board, it's a regular board meeting.
Would it be a violation to change that if it's first regular meeting? Here's newly elected directors will take office at the first official meeting. What constitutes first official?
Well, this is something we rule out, it's not just with this policy, we're using these words interchangeably, second regular.
Yeah, it would be interesting to, that wasn't a particular term that I was paying attention to, as I was, going through these yesterday, preparing for our meeting today. But, I mean,
Is the work session considered an official meeting? Because my understanding is an official meeting is when we take action, which is an informal meeting.
yeah, and there's the difference. Yeah, I don't know if, I would have to look to see how they used official versus regular meetings, and if there was some distinction there. I think that it would be at a regular meeting when those
Right.
spots is taken. It
Makes
wouldn't be
sense
a
to change.
special meeting, right? I don't think that would be a problem to change that to regular meeting. That's something I can look into before we adopt something.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't even notice that.
Even the regular.
Right. Yeah, and that's when we look at those policies. But yeah, if you start using those terms, a regular meeting is where we take action, but then sometimes we take action in special meetings, so.
Yeah, you can't take action.
Yeah, so, but,
Well, this has to do with the excuse absence.
right.
Oh.
It was understood that the regular meeting was, that was the
Right.
distinction.
But,
So for that particular comment, I do hear that there's a desire to change it to regular meeting, just made a note that Tim will circle back around just to make sure that there's no legal implications to
Okay.
changing it. But we'll let you know, there are.
And we had a correction in the
Yes.
paragraph under legal status and operation.
Absolutely, I'm headed to, I didn't skip you, I just went in reverse order this time.
No, that's fine, I just thought we were going in paragraphs.
Yes, you had a comment about community and local input?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
So under legal status and operation, Leslie has a comment about wanting to add a will provide for local community input.
Right here, so here's that.
It comes right after the first sentence.
So the only difference, let's see if I can change the,
But again, I don't know, this is, we're talking about legal status, and not private company. What would that mean? And what is that providing community support for parts of their legal status?
I just want that word community in everything. I just like that word. How's that for?
It just reiterates that we're here to represent the community.
So, that's what I want. School districts don't exist without a community. They don't. They just don't magically appear unless you have tax dollars and people agree. Give that power to the school district.
This is on.
Have students in the schools.
Yeah, but you do, they wouldn't have it if you don't have a community. Just something I really believe in.
so I was trying to come up with a way that you could read this without, let me see if I can open it. If I open it.
So you would want it to say, the Board of Directors of the Kent School District, number 415, is a corporate entity established by the state of Washington to plan and direct all aspects of the district's operation to ensure quality and the content of the district's educational program and provide students with an opportunity to achieve and, I've lost it.
Yeah, and that's why I was trying to,
And.
right, that's where it gets a little bit, here we go.
And provide.
That's why I wanted it to be read
Yeah.
without, I apologize, it happens in
Yeah.
a page break. But
And provide for the communities.
it would look like this. That would be the sentence.
I like the wording makes perfect sense. You know, we can't do this work without our community, we do it with our community for. How do we hold ourselves accountable when we say community, that we are ensuring we have a representative sample of our community, not necessarily those who live next to or see you occasionally, truly represent the community. How do we hold ourselves accountable?
I mean, if you said provide opportunities for community, right? You're not saying, take every data.
So just this language is a direct quotation from the law. So I just want us to be mindful of that when we're changing this. It comes out of RCW 28A 15230, which is the district school director's responsibilities. So that is specifically stated in the law, that first sentence, the way it read in the Boston Oral Policy, as the responsibilities of the board of directors. I mean, you could potentially add to.
So rather than adding it at the end of the sentence or altering that sentence, we add another sentence, which typically happens in Kent. Say it is Kent School District Board of Directors believes that community input is important and therefore they will provide opportunity, and that differentiates between what's legally required and what's a commitment or belief system of the district. Is that fair? Okay. Thank you. All right, so I'm gonna go back into, now that we've read it without, I'll go back into this version where I'm making notes and we'll make the notes. Other pieces, comments around, let's see, now they've turned purple. Initially they were green, Leslie. Now your comments are pink. I have no idea why, but it has never.
I like the purple.
So I was like, it's changed colors now. It's
Purple,
it's been
pink are my
colors.
colors. But green,
Yeah. So, okay, others, I think we're okay. All right, 1,000 is done. That was something. Okay, next on our list is 1105, director districts.
That's language from Boston.
So,
And we follow directed districts.
yes, I think because they were talking about a statewide and it's a function of the voter lines that are drawn outside of just a school district. And so they use the formal language rather than the common language that is adapted for the community. I don't know if it changes anything if we say director districts
Well, I mean, it does say directed districts.
later on,
Yeah.
but I mean,
Yeah, it's just using
and they're using electoral system, I guess, to describe a process, which is very technical way of describing that.
How does electoral process work in the state of Washington?
So that's more than can be expressed in a one-page policy, or that can be had in the 90 minutes we have left for this policy session, but.
It's like,
We don't have electoral process in the state. It's national. I mean, it's not correct.
I mean, can you do like a slash director district or something?
yeah, just,
You know, electoral system
The electoral
slash
system
director
has this title
district.
header for,
it just,
it establishes the electoral system used for elected school board.
But this is for school board directors, not necessarily for range.
yeah, it just needs to be more directed. That might be just a word.
What they, so,
I mean, because we're gonna be dealing with this at some point, because
whenever
there's
there's a
a
census,
census,
whenever there's a census,
and
we
there's a
track it from.
census, so we're gonna,
Yeah.
I mean, again, yeah.
Is the question just whether that section should be changed to talk about director districts, or?
Could there be a better terminology, I guess, for the electoral system? Because it's talking about the process of how a board director gets elected.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's outlining the responsibilities and, I guess, availability of the board to kind of shape that process. But it is pretty technical
Yeah,
as a
it
description,
is.
and for a reason that is legal probably, but.
Right, I mean, yeah, and I mean, this one we have to take some care because there is a census this year and that could, you know,
Yes.
So the header there that says authority under RCW 28A 343040, that is talking about director districts itself. So perhaps we could have that be in parentheses and then have that title be director districts instead. I mean, because the title of that is division or redivision of district into director districts, that RCW.
It says, you know, that there are some districts where like, we would be doing that, some entities do that, and some really, yeah. It's not really clear.
Do you think that would make sense to instead just change that one subheader into, you know, something related to the director district, so it's explicit?
Is the confusion is what I'm hearing, that electoral system seems too broad, is that what
It's
I'm
not
I'm
correct.
actually okay, well, but it is, because it's just talking about the system of election.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
because that's what it
But it's not
means.
relevant to.
We don't have an electoral system in the state of Washington.
It's not relevant to election.
It's a system of how elections, how elections are.
Well, it may be.
This is within the state of Washington, this is not national. We go by total number of votes, it doesn't matter, there's no electoral votes in the state Either or.
But it doesn't say electoral votes, it says electoral system, they're two separate. This
What
is
is
just
electoral
like a
system?
system process that when that happens, that's all. It
But
just
it's
says.
just for.
I'm gonna change it.
It's an electoral system.
I think it's confusing.
So we added two things that, as a suggestion, and then to get some feedback. So electoral system, if it helps, in parentheses, we can add process for electing district directors. And then in parentheses here, next to the authority under the law, we just put director districts. So they have the reference of kind of interchangeable language, so it's clear. But this does outline the process of items that the board directors have authority over and decision-making authority over, shaping and aligning with the law what the director districts look like. And when they are required or need to be aware of those changes. And that's correct. We are in the midst of doing a census count this summer, and so likely a year from now, the nation will get results and an update of that, and
Yeah, they're gonna have redistricting
Mhm.
every year.
so. Okay, let's go back. Apologize. That was your comment, and same thing, Director Hamada. And then,
That's just a symbol that
outlines the entire process of that.
And I have another, this is a whole controversial phenomenon.
I said,
I
how
know
do,
this is probably state law, but I'd like to see our district not vote school board directors in the district they live in.
So you don't want
Yes,
you want directors at large?
yeah. But I mean, that's probably state law. I'm quite sure it is, because I think I asked.
So the law says here, it just may implement director district, so it doesn't say that it's law that it's required.
Well, in Seattle, it's
There's seven.
They might have
They also,
You don't have to live in the district you want.
the combination.
they have a kind of,
Yep.
right,
And
so you don't have to
At large
live in the
seats.
you want to represent. So would it be?
We're representing, in my opinion, the whole district.
We are.
And so I don't think it matters where you live.
I wonder if it's just because of, again, the ability for our community members to communicate with us. So for example, if I know that I'm representing and I have kids in this area that attended,
Yeah.
coming to the Mets and to then my constituents have that same experience, and so they can come to me and it's a shared, I think that probably is why it exists that way.
No,
The
I-
converse is true too, that this has come up before, that we can't just be representing our schools, we have to be answering to.
And I think the biggest concern that I have is I think there's a lot more people who would run for election if they didn't have to run in the district they're in, because there's certain people in those districts that they don't want to take over, and yet they can add value to the school.
So one important point is that the voters voted to divide the district into director districts at some point. I'm not sure what the process would look like of undoing that, if there would need to be another vote that would be taken. But at some point, the voters in Kent School District did weigh in
Yeah, this is
and
by law.
divided into director
I knew
districts.
that. But I just wanted to throw that out. It's mine. I think it needs to be changed.
Right, I mean, I'm not saying that we couldn't go
Right,
back to
right,
director
right.
districts.
But I mean,
It's not that big.
Because there,
Probably
there's a
not for us
process
to
for
do.
dissolution.
yeah,
Not that big.
Yes.
Well, it should come from people who care about those decisions, not Lydia.
Well, the voters here too. I mean, they
I know, but I
decide-
mean, who's gonna advocate for it? Is people who are in the trenches doing it. I mean, I'm not gonna advocate for stuff that I have no understanding about.
And there are so many things to discuss on that.
No, I mean, I just threw that out, we don't need to discuss it. But I just.
The representation is.
I just personally like to see that, maybe it would change. I mean, Covington, Kent, they all threw out where you live. So large.
it's a large district, I mean.
Yeah.
Renton, we cover Renton, unincorporated King County,
Yeah.
Black Diamond, Auburn, we have schools in all those cities.
But we also have emergence of populations in all different areas, so I don't
Right.
think it's, I understand like in Yakima, where they got an actual county or a district that they had to have a spec. And I pushed for that, I went over and testified for that, but in this area, people are so fluid that they live all over of every race, creed, and color. I don't see where it has to be individualized.
Well, I think given the current system, we just need to be cognizant of representing, going out to the different schools that are not
Right.
part of our area. So that's as much as we can do.
If we were to dissolve directors' districts, that would, to again be voted on by the public.
I know, I'm pushing my political agenda, I wear my political hat.
But, yeah, I mean, it's like we are all elected in our district, but we do represent the whole constituency.
No, I totally understand. The point is, I think you get a larger pool of people running for the school board if they didn't have to just run in certain districts, because people get in those districts, and they don't want to take them on, they don't want to run a real campaign, yet they have a lot of things to contribute, and so it really minimizes the people that sit on this board. And I know that for a fact, so I'm just saying, if you want to open up and close down the barriers, it's a whole political issue, so we don't need to discuss it. That's my philosophy.
So 11.5, the only piece was about those track changes, kind of common language additions in parentheses, and so they will stand. We're going to move on to 13.10, which is about our work here today. It has to do with policy adoption and update. The director's comments.
I
Let's,
think you can just run that.
Probably could, and I don't know how to do it. They're coming up everywhere.
it may come up by default of like your most recently looked at or most recently commented on. There's a couple of different ways that it will sort it. So. Mine, I just happened to click on yours first.
I have the time for what.
So it talks about, WASDA's language refers to community as patrons,
Oh, yeah.
as if they're more of customers, and they are customers to the extent that they receive service from the district, but it's not patron in the way that most would consider it. So, changing that to community members was one comment suggestion. 1310.
Yeah, I think or stakeholders or something.
Yeah.
It just was weird to see the word patrons.
Yeah, it was changed in other parts of the
Yeah.
policy too.
Yeah.
Maybe they just missed words.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's, I
I just
think,
make a note about consistent language.
yeah, and I think they changed it everywhere myself.
Yeah, they changed at least in one portion from employees or patrons to staff members or community members.
Okay. Let's go back. There was more. It was about procedures, and I think, Leslie, you have a comment as well about that, so we'll combine those, but I'll start here.
This may have already been answered, but I said I do not like the following. Such procedure need not be approved by the board. The board should have say over procedures. Why write the policy if you do not have any say on how it's carried out? And you're telling me the procedure is kind of, the board does have some say over that, right? We talked about that earlier.
So they provide, I would say, they provide input on the development of policy, that informs the draft of the procedural suggestion and changes. And then they get to provide feedback when we share it informationally. And so there have been times when we present procedure and the board has given feedback, and we made change. One example was when we changed our travel policy of not presenting any funding for travel up front and doing all of that on the back end and reconciling there. There was some conversation about changes that needed to happen, and per procedure, recommendation from the board. We took that under advisement and made change. So, but the board does not adopt procedure for their team to have. They are part of the process of procedure development.
So that's why with policy, I think I said, I might have said this earlier, I might have just thought it. But that's why with policy, you want to make sure that anything that's very, very important is in the policy, so that it has to be in the procedure as well. So, like our policy, the one we looked at, 1400, it says public comment at the beginning. It's in the policy, so it has to be in the procedure as well.
So I just made a statement that we should have procedures accompanying all policies. And specifically, it says on controversial topics, the superintendent should request prior board consultation. And so there's a question of what's controversial for one. So I'm wondering if we can clarify that language.
Yeah, that could have a lot of.
So I wonder if it's,
Those policies that are, like for example, our racial equity policy, or our, those that are not necessarily law maybe, but, because there's some that have passion law, our racial equity policy is not legal. Right, so
I
I
think we
think
should call it controversial. Controversial is important, so on important topics.
The question, I guess, would be then what's unimportant that we ensure that's right?
Yeah. But then, why do you have that statement? We could say, I mean, I do think procedures should accompany all policies.
So I think I think you raised two issues in one comment, and I want to separate them out so we can deal with both. And so before we move on to that one, I think there was something about the what's controversial and what's not. I can give an example of recent events that might drive policy and possibly procedure. So if the board wanted to talk about professional behavior and ethics of staff,
That's a good one.
that is a real world example where it probably is not required as law, and the law is, there's some things that exist around that, but there also are reflections of district beliefs. So it might behoove the board to have a consultation with legal authorities around how to craft and develop that policy. So that's an example. I wouldn't call it controversial per se, but that's an example of a policy that I could see that we want to go through this process. And it's no less important or more important than any of the other policies. It's just, there's a little more gray area before you put something into district operation law. You want to make sure that it doesn't conflict with or put other things in jeopardy. So I don't know how to describe it, but that's an example of yes.
But gray areas and.
But the first sentence above that, so such procedures need not be approved by the board, but the board may revise them when it appears that the procedures are not consistent with the board's intentions as expressed in its policy. I think we can leave it there. Because it says that we still have the opportunity to review, and it may be revised. It's kind of saying the same thing without the controversial topic piece.
Yeah, I just don't
Yeah,
see
because I
what's the
like-
purpose of that. I guess I would like to see that, even though it says that such procedures need not be approved by the board, it ought to be accompanied, procedures should accompany, and it always, it hasn't always accompanied the past.
So the one policies have procedures.
No, when it should have procedures, it hasn't always accompanied. Like the race and equity, we didn't have procedures until much later. But we approved it without procedures. So that's
Right.
why.
Well, but that can take a while. So do you create the policy and then you have to go through the process of developing procedures, which can take a lot longer.
Yeah, but we should have, it should be accompanied in the sense that we should be able to see it and be able to consult on it.
But it was not developed then. So how would you do that? So should we not approve the policy until it has procedures? Or I guess I'm
I mean,
confused.
if it needs procedures, yes, it should be.
Yeah,
able to see it.
I think that's a good idea.
I don't think we should approve a policy without procedures.
So this, I will say that is going to drag out your policy update process even longer. Because
It is.
WASDA does not update procedure because it is district-based in their operations and their structures and that kind of thing. And so
But they do have procedures that accompany the policies.
they do, but that would assume that the district is just gonna say, we will operate per WASDA standards and guidelines, which every district is not staffed that way. And so, for example, today, had we gotten through all 42-ish of the 1,000 series policies, about half of them have procedures. I would say that you all are at a place where they're not gonna make this Wednesday's coming board meeting, but it might make the first Wednesday in March, because we've come to some consensus and agree on the changes. And it would probably be ready for adoption, either during discussion and approval or consent agenda. The procedures may not be ready for all of those by that
Okay, let
time.
me clarify.
Okay,
I'm not
so-
talking about that. I'm talking about like, if you come up with a new policy, and it doesn't have any accompanying procedures, it doesn't make any sense for us to adopt a policy, new policy. We already have these policies laid out. Yes, the procedures are going to be continually changing, but we have had in instances where we've had new policies, like race and equity, that didn't have any procedures accompanying it. And so that didn't take a lot of time to get there, you know, but we shouldn't be approving that without some procedures that we can review or comment on.
I think the challenge is on the policy is what, so the policy is what does the board want to see? And then from there, the district goes and says, okay, let's implement this policy. So for example, when we adopted our racial equity policy in Auburn, at that point, we said, okay, so who was going to be responsible for implementing, we had 4 areas, right? Discipline and proportionality. So who was going to be responsible for doing that piece? And it went to our assistant superintendent of student support, and so they have to establish those policies, but I think that would be, so that's not the way that I've seen any, even when we did the family engagement policies, you have to go to the district staff. This is saying, our policy is saying, this is what the board wants. And then it goes to the staff to determine how to make that happen.
Right, and I'm not saying we're going to approve it, I'm saying it needs to be reviewed. I need to see procedures that are going to go along with the policies, because I don't feel like there is a policy here that speaks to that says if it's not incongruent, if it's incongruent with what the policy states, then we have the ability to consult with the staff and talk about that, because there have been procedures, for example, disciplinary issues, you know, how staff members can volunteer, not volunteers, can a dean of school meet with the individual to discuss discipline. Well, that's not part of the procedure, but should it be part of the procedure? There are big questions on that. So things like that come up, and do we want to stick to the policy itself?
Are you saying, I guess that was my question, are you saying, as an example, or that if, using that example, are you suggesting that each one of those unique halves, those examples, be brought to the board?
Well, no, I'm saying there should be an awareness of what is happening on our school grounds, and so if it's incongruent with, or if we determine as a board that it's incongruent with the policy, then we ought to be able to have a say.
So the policy states that, how about we just remove the last sentence? Because the section is talking about procedure.
Yeah,
So just have it,
about the controversy.
so just have it stop with when because the first sentence, it says exactly what we're intending to do and what we've been trying to do over the past year and a half, is when a written procedure is developed, even if it's revised, the superintendent submits it to the board as an information item. Such procedures need not be approved by the board, though the board may revise them when it appears that procedures are not consistent with the board's intentions as expressed in policy. And then don't say anything about it being controversial or not, just period. When we present an operationalization of our interpretation of policy and it falls outside of what you all expect, you should be able to say, well, that's not what we intended when this happened, or how are you addressing this piece in your procedure?
Yeah, so my first statement was just to say that we should have the procedures, which is what your statement is saying, so I'm reiterating. And it was just a point that we haven't always had that. So thank you for that clarification. And then the second is, yes, the controversial should, doesn't make sense. Yes, what you said makes sense.
And that's why about it too, with our policies, we need to be, you know, if there's certain things that are, we absolutely, it's like non-negotiable, we want in the procedure, it should be in the policy too.
So that takes care of that last section, but there were some changes above. So we got focused right on procedure right away. And we skipped, I did make the community member note, but we skipped Michelle, you had a comment
Yeah,
of a strike through in language under policy, which is absolutely board work. So under policy adoption, it's this last sentence, which is new language here per WASDA.
it just makes me uncomfortable when there's any changes, even if it is a quick, easy change, and it's like, oh, we just changed a shall to a will, or, you know, we referenced a new law. It just, you know, again, we're responsible for these policies, and even though it seems little, it could be big, and so that just doesn't make me comfortable that we don't see every change. It's something that's, again, how do you define non-substantive, you know? 'Cause what's substantial to someone on the board might not seem substantial to someone who's updated.
So, I mean, the question would be just, like, every time there's a, let's say that a law gets reclassified into, you know, RCW 28A 320 goes to RCW 28A, like, you know, 720. And we need to make that little change to the update in the legal references. We still want to approve that change.
What if it's just editorial revisions for legal cross-references and not the editorial revisions? Again, I don't know, I understand that, and again, in the interest of efficiency, but it's like, it's just that section of non-substantive that I just don't, someone's editorial revision might change the meaning of something, and that's more what I'm concerned about. In the interest of efficiency.
What about, my suggestion would be, what about starting that sentence with just changes?
Yes, changes in administrative, legal, and/or cross-references need not be approved by the board, yes. Editorial revisions, I think the board, yes. So, yes. Yes, no.
Right. I was
It's a
thinking that's
capital.
weird. Yes.
It's an editorial revision.
Yes.
But we're here.
I think that counts every comment that was made and addresses the concerns of the board. Are there any other discussion regarding 1310? Right now, because we use board docs, we will reference board docs in a formal way for policy manual. So we technically have a printed version, but it's difficult to keep up because as we go through these processes, then and so board docs helps with that, but I will reference that there rather than just our district website. And 9 times out of 10, if someone has made it to the policy, then they know what board docs is, but.
I have a question. That raises a question that just how do we track changes for anyone? So like once a policy changes, do we have it somewhere, the old policy? So if a citizen.
So believe it or not, there is a SharePoint kind of process and folder that keeps iterations and versions
Okay.
of policy changes from the beginning of time.
So if it should ever come up, someone
Yes.
could be able to,
Yes.
you could give it to them.
And so they can see the prior, what they see is the prior version and the recent version. They don't necessarily, well, because we keep it electronic now, they can see track changes and those things. But prior to, they were just iterations of. And then in that versioning, there's also kind of a change order sheet that talks about the overall changes to policy over time at the beginning of every series. It's kind of that piece. The only other way that someone would know when they're just looking at policy, but it doesn't give them any indication of what was there before, it's just the last day it was reviewed and the last day it was revised.
That could also help direct them to the meeting minutes and the meeting records from that particular meeting when they see those reviews and revised portions. They can go
Right.
see what it looked like
Right.
at that time.
Dr. Herman, before you go to 1610, there was 1452, that was an amendment, is that in the
Fourteen
1452.
It's an amendment.
Okay.
Okay, you want to go?
No, there's not a problem at all. I could easily pull up 14.
Going in order. It seems to be on this policy, it's more to make sure we ensure a quorum, like if the meeting's set, you want to make sure there's a quorum present.
And so there is a actual policy about quorum, or no, it was addressed in meeting conduct over business. That's where it is in the first, so they talk about quorum specifically there. However, this just talks about the protocol process for absence of quorum.
That's where we have language about it somewhere, right?
We do in another policy, yeah. I mean, it's covered, I mean, this is almost, I think it's covered in another policy. That's, was my question with this, but I think I made similar changes.
Yeah, it is somewhere. I guess for me, it's to clarify about the regular board meeting versus work session, special meetings. That was meeting set in advance,
Right.
which would be the regular board meetings. And so do we want to say these particular things apply to meetings that are set in regular board meetings?
Right.
Second paragraph, it talks about taxes for regular board meetings.
Right, that's for consecutive key instances.
And I added language, just, I think that's what you brought up, is just to make it completely clear, I can never imagine a time where I would say I would vote no on someone's absence for any reason. But it's just like, so then it's very clear to our constituents that, you know, even if it's retroactive, like today, you know, Director Bowen had an unplanned absence, but of course I would say, you know, yes, let's vote to approve that as an excused absence. So I added language just to have discussion about whether it would be best practice to just, anytime someone's absent, to just do a quick vote of the board, or just add it in the consent agenda. And then just make sure so there's no question that it, you know, that it was, that's how you identify as excuse. Like I said, I can't imagine ever saying, no, I don't excuse that absence, but just so for clarity's sake to have it, you know, on a consent agenda every time, just to make sure that, you know, y'all understand.
So my thought about this is when, so we don't I need to be clear, I don't think it's a vote that we take to excuse an absence. Unless it's because.
It just, so I just caused, there's the if requested to do so, and so I'm wondering if we want, yeah.
But we don't take an official vote.
But what I'm saying is maybe we want to take an official vote so that it's just on record and that it's an excused absence. So the whole board just says, yeah. You know,
Oh, we do that at Covington Human Service.
yeah, I sat on the
We
Rent
do
Rights
that.
Commission and we did that, it was on the
You
consent
always have to
agenda.
go through that process,
Yeah.
and there's a reason for it.
I
So
think
if a
that's,
majority of the board is gonna take an action, you'd have to do it in a formal way and take a vote. Like, there's no way, I mean, how would you
But
collect?
see, but that's what I'm saying, so do we have to, does the board have to say, okay, you're excused? I don't know that that's all ever happened.
no, I don't think it ever has, but what I'm saying is, would it be best practice to do that? So it's on the consent agenda, so there's no question, you know, as to, you know, someone was absent, you know, someone was sick, and it's like, yes, I approve that. You know, we all vote, or someone can't come to a meeting and we know in advance, yes, I approve that. And then that way it also helps us because we'll make sure we maintain a quorum.
For me, that second paragraph, for consecutive unexcused absences, I think, you know, it's not forgiveness, active or training military duty, or those authorized by resolution of the board. So those authorized by resolution of the board, I don't think that we have. So that, I'm not clear with that.
That is a quotation from the law.
Right, like what is it? What's the resolution of the board?
To authorize the extended absence maybe.
Well, let me say, with Covington, why we have to start doing this, it probably is not gonna happen here. On Human Service Commission, we had people who were just not showing up, and we needed those people to have a quorum, and we needed to, we knew it was a delicate matter that we had a policy, but we had to also put on what were excused absences. Because we needed to formally tell this person she needed to be replaced in a very formal manner, we thought. And that, going forward, we were gonna have a vote, and if there wasn't, you know, they weren't even calling and telling us they weren't coming. So we couldn't really conduct business, is why. And then the council got involved and put it into something in Covington. From here on, we have to do that. We vote on it, and we have to have, they have a set of priorities. You can't just not show up because you don't feel like coming that day. Not saying that's gonna probably happen on the school board, but that's why we do it.
So that's a committee appointment versus an elected official.
Right.
I think some districts have, I'm trying to remember, but I did look at some other districts. I think some districts have it just as a consent agenda item. I think, I can't remember if it was Renton or somewhere else that I was looking, but it's just a standard consent agenda item where it's like, whether, and if there's no absences, you have to approve retroactively, or
Yep.
absences, you know, upcoming absences that we know, you know, because things happen and people, you know, have to be gone, but I think you can't, Right, and we might wanna add-
Or minutes or taking.
yeah, and we want to, and so we might want to add, you know, regular, the word regular, you know, inability to attend a regular board meeting. You know, which would be those, the ones that are scheduled throughout the year, the second and fourth, you know.
And again, the Covington Council follows that procedure with elected officials. So that's why they pass it on to the commission.
I mean, not common such saying that it applies to regular board meeting and not work sessions or special meetings, but set in advance. But in my view, that first paragraph, you know, the last sentence, I don't know, it's just too big for me. I would just completely delete that. That doesn't make sense to me. Because the second paragraph, I think we need to work on, but it's much stronger in saying that it's ill. The only part is number 3, which I don't understand, those authorized by a resolution of the board. But yes, illness is an excused absence, active or training military duty is excused. What is the third one?
So it could be like, for example, work, if you're out of town for
Yeah,
work. I mean,
yeah.
there's a lot of different things.
Right,
that
I
we can
understand
solve.
it could
Yeah.
be, but what is authorized by resolution of the
I get
board?
what you're saying.
So
Yeah, that's
it's-
kind of,
it-
just get rid of.
Yeah, I mean, so executive unexcused absences, you know, if it's something else other than illness or military duty, then if we don't have that, whatever that is, then we can't have that statement there either. That doesn't make sense.
I think for me, the question is what constitutes an excused absence? I mean, again, it's like,
Right, that's
that's
we
why
have
that
to
first,
define it.
that's why the first paragraph, you know, they may excuse, again, I think it's just a procedural thing, just like, you know, I just think it would be, in my opinion, a best practice procedural thing to just have it on the consent agenda, just to excuse absences, you know, to vote to excuse absences. Like I said, I can't imagine ever not excusing someone's absence for any reason.
So you're saying just leave it there, majority of the board may excuse a board member's absence. Or immediate
But you have to have a
This is the
vote.
language here,
Yeah.
by a majority vote of the board.
But that's
So I,
And you're talking about regular meetings.
Yeah, that, I mean, yeah, I see, I even said regular board meeting in my
But
place.
see, that, okay, but then I'm thinking we should be revising that second paragraph.
right.
not
So adding something that work that takes you from out of town.
So we're approving it, we're also explaining what the
What the
unexcused
right.
absence.
Yes.
I don't know if that's, I think it's a little bit too prescriptive.
so paragraph 2 is a little bit different. Paragraph 2 is actually talking about at which point, no, it's actually talking about at which point a board member has vacated their position.
Yeah.
Meaning that they have been absent enough, regardless to a certain extent of reasons other than those 3 listed, have been absent enough that they are considered no longer active board members, and the board wants to go through a process of removing them and electing or appointing a more active board
And
member.
that's
So
exactly.
that's a little bit
Yeah.
different than the first paragraph, which it's fine if you want to define what excused and unexcused is, but don't assume that the second paragraph is getting into that. It's actually talking about the formal.
No, I'm saying the second paragraph could be modified because I feel like it's duplicative and it doesn't make sense. Especially because we're not even defining what the number 3 is. I don't understand that. Those authorized by a resolution of the board. We have not authorized.
So
But these are model policies, right? So this would be for any board that has, if we took it away, it doesn't necessarily mean we wouldn't in the future.
It's different from the law.
Absolutely.
That's what
That's
Tim
what I'm
was
saying.
just reading.
I get
Yeah.
it. I get
So
that.
we can't change that.
Right.
Be hesitant to change it. It is.
So I would, and I appreciate this, I wonder if we, so we go back to Leslie. Why do we have this policy?
So then we replace, so we can.
And I think the second paragraph is about why, it's accountability. And it has nothing to do, so the assumption is we're all going to be here because we're doing this work for good and meaningful reasons that we all know we should. There are some times when we are not able to be here. Good intentions, grace and understanding means that by and large, we have a good reason. There are times, however, when if someone is not here and they're not able to do the work, and we're not able to do the work as a team or as a board, as I've learned, there's no other accountability measure in place to say, if you're not going to be here, you can't do the work. What then? That paragraph 2 is really only what then. That's,
And you could have potentially have a person elected to a position that just doesn't
And then,
realize
yeah.
what it involves.
Sure.
And you've got to find a way to legitimately replace that person. And that's why Covington developed that, and that's why,
And, I mean, and it's, again, it's not just this snapshot in time, because we all
that's what I'm saying.
make every
It's
effort.
for-
It's for,
yeah.
you know, like ostensibly, you know, we don't have to review these for another 6 years then. So it's, again, and I think then, to make it fair for any board member, that's why you would just do, you know, have a consent agenda vote, and then it's very cut and dry. And, you know, again, and I know people call in too, when they can't. Like, you know, next week I'm gonna be calling in for a meeting because I won't be able to drive. So, and there's policy in there too that says
You don't have to be
you
present.
don't have to be present, so that's another policy. But I'm just saying,